On August 25th, Mighty Muse is bringing MUSONIQ back to Jesus 4. We're bringing you 3 amazing artists and 1 incredible show, but first, let's take a look into an exclusive take from the artists here on MUSONIQ Countdown.
I was brought up in the music scene. My dad was a big influence in my music endeavors. So he was a musician himself, so he did gigs every single weekend. That was his full-time job. So watching him go from gig to gig, performing here, I would go and watch him do his performing, and then sometimes I would get up and sing with him as well. So watching his lifestyle and watching the creative arts at play kind of influenced me a lot. As I got older and had a little bit more experience, I steered off into R&B. I then experimented with EDM, but I found my love between both R&B and pop. So I merged those two together, and that's kind of where I sit. Writing things that people can, number one, either dance or move along to, or number two, people can relate to. Each day I have a set time to, okay, when are we gonna film, when am I gonna film content? I teach contemporary, hip hop, jazz, ballet, all the things. So yeah, creative life overall. I get up, I have my whole day to create, and then in the afternoon, I go straight and I dance for the rest of the afternoon. It's great.
That is lonely.
Yeah.
Go there for a month and network and work with people for a month and then come back.
Are you actually going to go?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to go. I'm going to go to America for 3 weeks and train at Millennium Dance Complex every single day and just train.
When are you planning? My very first show, like Xaysha show with the dancers, was at my release party, like a year ago now. That was like, I guess, a step in the right direction in terms of what I wanted as a whole. I wanted this show for a really long time, prepping for the show, getting the dancers ready, getting the costuming ready, and it finally happened, and it was received really well. And the show developed, and now it's become high energy, pumping, exciting. If you like catchy tunes, if you like sing-alongs, if you like hair whips and wax, and you like costuming, and you like LED lights, then this is the show for you. I've come a long way to get where I am now. I suppose every artist goes through that roller coaster ride of, you know, how much longer can I push through this? How much longer can I continue to create and invest time, invest money, invest. Then I get up on the stage, and then I remember why I do it and go, nah, it's pretty good. So once I get the audience interaction, once I get that feeling of feeling like absolute joy of giving something to somebody else, to a bunch of people, I'm like, we're good. We strive to kind of give everything to the audience so that they can have a moment in time where they can absolutely forget about every worry they got, and they're just here, they're present, they're watching, they're enjoying. MUSONIQ as a whole, I really love what it stands for, pushing the Sydney scene and the local artists around Australia, and I really resonate with something like that. The way the world is right now, you can really kind of shape the future that we are currently creating ourselves. I believe that it's something that you probably haven't really seen in Sydney before. I want them to leave with a certain feeling rather than a memory of what I did on the stage. How am I going to create that? You'll have to come to the show.
It was the first lockdown that I was like, I'm gonna go to King Street. Like, it's in my 5K radius and I'm gonna go there and busk every day. Like, I'll just put on some boom bap loops on my looper and just like freestyle all day and see what happens. And like, I never had a guitar case or anything for money. I was just like there with my QR code and just like, I wanted to show like the isolated like technique of just getting better and just like completely putting yourself out there, like being lonely and being on this street and also hearing awful things from people that walk past. And then also hearing great things or just people that smile at you because they know that it's part of their day where they saw something that's different. So I think being put in a little box and being isolated for a bit, it didn't make me want to spend time in my four walls. It was more so about like going out there and understanding my surroundings, noise, different humans and souls and characters that aren't just here to come and watch me gig. Like putting myself in a position where I'm giving people the option to say no.
You can call it unholy, worship to the devil in the back, you console me, a bit of a rhyme was infectious for its time.
But I think it was the isolation that like grew me to be stronger. I decided as a musician that isolation was gonna motivate me when I thought it was time to start busking.
I called it a rehearsal, I'm sniffing through the air, I see green and purples, didn't know it care, I know it to be hurt.
That's what strengthened me and made me realize that like, yeah, you have to be more than what you just think you are in your lab and how you're trying to express yourself. You just got to come raw and you just got to be what it is. And that's what people want. They want to see a human, you know. Sometimes you got to have like the alter ego and like the alien supernatural way of thinking, but you're human. So showing that.
Everywhere this little girl goes, she pick up another half seat. Oh, hey. She was my art. I don't know the try but default. Hey. But by default, she don't think of me.
Understanding that sometimes you do plateau. There's so many levels of where you plateau. But I didn't really want to just keep giving that to the industry. So I decided to go away. Everybody does as an artist. I thought it would be good to come in my four walls and think about how I want to present myself. And then I realized that it was just about presenting your art and your music the way that you are, like authentically. I was a personal trainer, so I had like all the early mornings. And I was a manager at this gym and I was still doing the studio till 3 or 4 in the morning, and then I would still stay up. And then my manager like called me in that day and was like, "You're doing so good. We love what you're doing, like you're punctual, but we found your socials and you're in the studio every night until 4 or 5 in the morning. And you come straight here and I just don't know how it's possible. So we're just gonna have to give you the option. It's like, you can either do that or you can do this because it's a really good job." And like people would kill to be in your position after like the lockdown. And I said, okay, well, music is kind of like my baby, so I'll hand in my uniform today and you can find somebody else. That's it, like you kind of made my decision, like it's either one or the other. And I think there's also a lot of other moments. There was a moment like maybe 4 years ago, I just looked at myself for the first time in ages in the mirror, like ages. And I cried because I was like, I'm meant for more than this. This is like nowhere compared to where I can be. I was meant to do more. I was meant to give back to the community. I'm meant to have a community. And I didn't feel that. And I felt like what was stopping me was a lot of other commitments that I felt I had to do as a person. Relationships, work, everything, even family. And the expectations of that. And breaking through every single part of that and realizing that you need to tap into who you think you are. And then just growing into the skin of that, I think is like, yeah, all sorts of events have always just led me to being more full in my skin about it. I think the first year was real easy because I was so excited. All these people, all these places, like these sessions that I've been waiting months to have, let's just put them in. And then I got great reception, so I was just busy 24/7. But it was after the first year that you've gigged at all the venues and then they're like, "Oh yeah, we had her a few months back, cool." And then they turn like a blind eye on you, but you're like, "No, this pays my rent." I think it was just like the hustle afterwards and then separating yourself from just like a gig, you know, a gigger to an artist and like somebody that also has like a legacy of their own message. Once you fall off, everything spirals. Everybody feels that, like it's the worst. But I think it's just like yeah, I think it was like post 1 year, it's like you have everything that's opened and like potential to use, and it's just about like crushing all of those things. I'm actually very excited for this show, and the reason being is because I'm performing half of my unreleased EP. I've just been listening to those beats constantly and finding new ways of how to deliver and express it. I think that interpreting my set and reflecting through it is not something that's meant to make you feel the isolation and the loneliness that I've put myself through. I want them to remember me as somebody who is an interactive artist that doesn't take themselves too seriously. I have these raw and these genuine and serious messages, but I'm also a clown, you know? I'm just a musical monkey. And so I just want them to take away that I am that energy, you know, I am the energy that they can depend on as well to feel and reflect through.
The same air, you breathe the same air.
What initially drew me to my art form was, I guess, my surroundings. You know, I grew up in Bankstown, pretty multicultural area, and particularly when I was growing up in school, you know, hip hop I probably resonated the most with as far as like what it was talking about, you know, what was happening around me. You know, I grew up in Bankstown in the late 90s, sort of, you know, there's a lot of crime and stuff like that. I wasn't necessarily involved in it, but, you know, you're always like a product of your environment.
Broughton Street, Canterbury.
Sydney shooting where a 4-month-old baby came under fire.
So, you know, you become a little bit more educated on what's happening around you as far as like what my friends were getting up to. You know, there was a lot of drugs in the area, particularly at Cabramatta Ways, because like I said, I was never in crime. I was always just around the boys and a lot of my friends who were good cats, like they were good people, but circumstantially they just got themselves into mischief. Got into like Wu-Tang and started hearing more creative ways of describing your surroundings, and I guess that, you know, resonated with me the most.
You try to be one of the greatest, but all that I do is forever debated. You got me a levels of gas and a tap, and that fucking you rapping has got me deflated. You tell me what the definition of making this ready, you paid off the...
My parents weren't home much when I was a kid. You know, particularly my dad, he was working a lot, and you know, he was doing it for the right reasons, but as a result I probably didn't really have that guidance or father figure. You know, there was a driving force in me as a young kid to essentially prove to my dad and my father, who was essentially like quite absent in those, you know, those pretty important years, that, you know, I could make something of myself musically, you know. And so there was a real fire in me to, I guess, yeah, just essentially prove him wrong, to a point where, you know, signing ultimately a deal to Sony. I remember getting the engraved pen that I actually signed. I just wanted to give it to him, to just be like, I told you I could do this, you know, and you constantly told me that it's just a hobby. And so I really went to him with that pen, and I gave it to him. And I guess that was a bit of a pivotal moment. But on the flip side, years later, I then started to understand what missing that guidance from my father meant, and ultimately that relationship in a weird way sort of shaped my passion for achieving. So the moral is like looking internally and actually, you know, finding the passion within myself. Make myself proud, not essentially to prove him wrong, but to achieve what I genuinely in my heart wanted to set out to achieve. I decided to utilize my craft as solely expression, because I started to understand that expression of my story then ultimately is what becomes relatable to others. I love to connect with the audience. I love to, you know, create a vibe, but also create an opportunity to connect, you know what I mean, and really have what I'm saying resonate with them. You know, it's not just about a party the entire time with me, you know what I mean. I'm more than happy to get down and show you energy and show you all that sort of stuff, but ultimately it's about connection in every facet. I take into consideration what the environment might look like, what the other artists are going to bring to the table, and I try to not only stand out but also blend in. When you're so rehearsed that you know your show inside out and you know what you're going to be delivering inside out, it just instills a confidence in you to be able to execute that correctly, to be like, I know I'm going to perform the track, that's not a problem, that's ticked. So what unique factors can I look at in this evening to be able to connect with audiences? So my mind is always actually set on connection rather than performing my tracks. My tracks are rehearsed, they're going to be performed. You know, I've worked hard, and yes, I have the luxury to be able to speak, and you know, but I don't speak for myself. Although I'm speaking of myself, I'm not speaking for myself. And as a result, you know, the only reason that I sustain being a creative and a performer is because, you know, I yearn, like I want human connection. You know what I mean? This is the type of person that I am. So being able to create that and facilitate that through performance is one of the most fun things that I get to do. What can I do to make sure that they walk away from it and say, that was such a great experience, I want to be able to contribute to that again because I felt valued even just being a contributor, you know, and I felt involved.